Hello everyone and welcome back to another Unreal Engine 5 tutorial. Today we'll start building a customizable NPC dialogue system, just like in AAA games, with cinematic conversation scenes, voice output and facial animations, using metahumans as both the player character and NPCs. To be properly prepared, you first need a playable metahuman. If you don't know how to set this up, click on the info card and follow my Metahuman to Player Character tutorial. Once you have your playable metahuman, we could start building the system. Create a second metahuman to use as our NPC. Create a new basic level and drag the NPC into the scene. The first step is to check if the player is close enough to the NPC to start a dialogue. Open the NPC blueprint. In the Components tab, select the root component and add a collision capsule. Set the half height to 175 and the radius to 125. Then set the Z location to 50. Now we have a trigger area around our NPC that allows us to detect when the player is close enough. Set the collision preset of the capsule to custom. Set everything to ignore and set pawn to overlap. For the NPC body itself, set the collision preset to block all. To make this trigger visible to the player, we'll add a rotating X button above the NPC's head when the player overlaps the trigger capsule. We create two materials for the button. One for the front and back, and one for the middle part. So right-click and create a new material. Name it Button Ring. For the middle part, create a constant 3-vector node in the material graph and connect it to the base color pin. Set the values to 0.4, 0.4 and 0.4. Set metallic to 1, specular to 0.5 and roughness to 0.2. To get a nice metallic look, duplicate the material, name it Button Front. Instead of the 3-vector constant, I use a very simple texture. Just a red square with an outlined white X in the middle, but use whatever symbol or letter you want. I will share my texture in a download package with you later. Now create a new actor blueprint. Name it X button. Add a cylinder component and name it Button Mid. Set the scale to 0.16, 0.16 and 0.02 and rotate it 90 degrees on the X and Y axis. Assign the button ring material to it. Duplicate the cylinder and name it Button Front. Set the scale values to 0.145, 0.145 and 0.03. Then assign the button front material to it. In the Components tab, add a rotating movement component. In the Details panel, set the Z rotation to 90. This means the button will rotate 90 degrees per second. Compile and save. Now open the NPC blueprint. Add a child actor component. Name it Button and assign the X button blueprint as the child actor class. Set the Z location to around 200 and finally set the visibility to off. Otherwise the button would already be visible when the game starts. Now switch to the event graph. To check if the player overlaps the collision capsule, create an Event Actor Begin Overlap node. Add a Set Visibility node to it and choose the one that already has the button component assigned. Set it to True. To turn it off again when the player leaves the overlap, add an Event Actor End Overlap node and set the visibility of the button back to False. Compile, save and test it. If the player is close enough to the NPC, the rotating X button will appear. When the player leaves the trigger capsule, the button will be hidden again. Now create a new blueprint of type Actor Component and name it Dialog-System. Open the Dialog-System component and create a custom event called Enter Dialog-System. We'll hook this up in a moment. To be able to use this dialog blueprint for multiple NPCs later, we need to specify which NPC is currently in the dialog. To do that, select the Custom Event node and in its Details panel add a new input and name it NPC. Set the type to the NPC blueprint. Create a new variable with the same type and name it Current NPC. Now set this variable right after the event node and connect the pins. If we call this event from different NPCs later, we can simply hand over the NPC reference. Next, open your NPC blueprint and add the dialog system as a component. Inside the NPC blueprint, create a new Boolean variable called trigger zone. We'll use this to check if the player is close enough to interact with the NPC. After the set visibility node of the rotating button, set the variable to true when the player enters the trigger capsule and back to false when the player leaves it. Now we can handle the input, but first we need to enable it. By default, only the player character receives input. So after setting dialog zone to true, add an enable input node. And after setting dialog zone back to false, add a disable input node. Input is handled by the player controller, so add a getPlayerController node and use player 0, the default player. Still in the NPC blueprint, add an input for keyboard key X and gamepad face button left. Connect both inputs to a branch node and use the trigger zone variable as the condition. If the condition is true, call the Enter Dialog-System custom event inside the Dialog-System component. For the NPC reference, simply connect self. Next, we'll prepare the scene for our cinematic dialog setup. Add the small cube component to the NPC blueprint and set its scale to 0.2. We'll use this cube as a dummy position for the player during dialogue scenes. Set its location to 0, 95, 0 and the Z rotation to -90 because we also use the cube's rotation to automatically face the player towards the NPC during the dialogue. Then disable collision and visibility. Next, add a Cine camera to the NPC blueprint and name it NPC Cam. Set the film back to 16:9 DSLR. For easier setup, place the NPC in the level at 000. Then temporarily add the player Metahuman to the scene and move it to the position of the cube. Now select the NPC in the level. You should see the camera preview. If not, open the Camera Options menu and enable Preview Selected Camera. Adjust the camera in the NPC Blueprint viewport to an over-the-shoulder perspective, looking from the player towards the NPC. For a more cinematic look, set the focus method to manual and adjust the focus distance to the NPC's face. Now, let's set up the player's position and rotation when entering the dialogue. Open the Dialog-System blueprint. Drag the NPC reference into the graph, then drag out from its pin and get the cube component. From the cube, get its world location and world rotation. Next, get the player character and add a Set Actor Location node, followed by a Set Actor Rotation node using the player character as the target. Split the return pin of the cube's location as well as the new location pin and connect the X and Y values. Because the Z location of the player character is not at the feet, but in the center of the capsule component, we leave the Z value unchanged. Get the player character and add a Get Actor Location node. Split the return pin and connect the Z value to the new location pin. Then connect the cube's world rotation to the new rotation pin. To stay organized, create another custom event and name it setPlayerPosition. Finally, call the setPlayerPosition event from the Enter Dialog-System event. If we now press the X button, the player character will automatically move to the dummy position and face the NPC. The last step for today is to switch the camera view to the NPC cam we set up earlier. Create another custom event in the Dialog-System blueprint and name it Camera Switch. Drag out from the event node and add a set view target with blend node. Set the new view target to the NPC reference, and then get the player controller, which contains the player's follow camera, and connect it to the target pin. Call the camera switch event right after the setPlayerPosition event. Compile, save, and hit play. If we now press the X button, the camera view switches to our NPC camera. And that's it for today. Stay tuned for part 2 of this setup. Cheers!